my way to think about kata and the way I teach them. Okay, thank you very much.
Talking about kata, well, actually, I'm a big fan of kata. Kata teaching, kata practicing. There could be a selfish reason for this, because as a judge, I've seen so many bad katas that really made me cringe. So I think that maybe sometimes we learn kata, or we've been learning kata also ourselves, maybe from teachers that were not really motivated to teach, or maybe they were just passing what they learned, also the mistakes that they learned in the old days and so on. There are some mistakes in kata practice that it's incredible how they are persistent. I was taught in the wrong way when I started Kendo, which is 35 something years ago, or a bit more, actually. Those mistakes I still see practiced by beginners, like the bad habit being passed on, and then you say, oh my God, there is no way to turn this back. So I think that we need to put more attention in teaching kata. And as my predecessor said, the first step is to learn the moves, which seems rather, lame. Well, I would like to remind everybody that in Kendo we only have 10. Iaido people have hundreds, Jodo people even worse. They must have thought that the Kendo people were a bit thick because they gave us only 10 to learn. Does it take so much to learn 10? I would like to make my intervention on this. Please, when you buy the Bokuto, buy also the Kodachi for the beginners. Because it's not that they have to learn the privilege to learn the Kodachi no kata. They will have to go there if they want to grow. It's not something that it's not a concession. So have them have the Kodachi no kata together with their Odachi, because that is the way to do it. There is no other way. It's not that you buy an encyclopedia only to letter M, and then if you've been good, then you go to the Z. It doesn't make any sense. It has to be there. And be sure that people learn the move for a simple reason, that the fun, the interesting, the exciting part of kata is really when you can start building the meaning of the kata in them, and the interpretation, the way you lift them together with your opponent. I was so lucky to see what Alex was showing before. I managed to hear Inoue Sensei teaching this. It was in Tokyo, 2014. And for me, it was a revelation. I never saw the first kata in that way. But I will always remind that to my students, because there are deeper meaning in kata than what we usually can teach when people get a kodachi or a tachi in their hands for the first time. But please try to make it exciting for the next generation also to learn kata. Because if you live them like a real jewel, and believe me, if we are going to practice together, I'm going to make it like that for you. If you make it like a real jewel, then it becomes really exciting. And then you don't look at them as, yeah, I have to do this. And believe me, it's so depressing for us when we see people going for the first kata, and instead of cutting the hands, that's the target, the hands, the finger. I want to cut the finger and go to the downward to the head. They make something like that, as if they want to kill themselves with the bottom of the sword. So, just to name one. But it has to be, first we have to go through the moves, then we have to put the interpretation, and then you can put the teaching of distance, the relationship with your opponent, the breathing, everything else. But please do it for me, do it for yourself. Learn the moves, all 10. Don't think, they have no real sequence, the kata. It's not that we start from the easiest and we go to the most difficult. it's always been a bit of a mystery to me why like that. I can imagine this sensei closed into top 10 and they were making their negotiation. No, 3 from my school, 2 from yours. No, my school, I want to have more, or something like that. Must have happened like that. But the moment they are being delivered to us, we have to treasure them because it's really, first of all, they're only 10. So there must be a reason so that we can concentrate and really go deeper in the guts of the kata to understand what they mean. And then I would leave you with one reflection, one last thought. Why giving up on the best chance to be better than the Japanese? So.
Well, for my colleague, I think they talk enough about kata and touch all point very interesting and important for kata and their application in Shinai Kendo. We can show in kata, of course, how to manage the sword, and from this point we can use better our shinai. Of course, shinai is not sword. Of course, there are some kind of different of using this, but there are some point that are perfectly equal. How to use a suji, for example. And other point that is really important is opportunity to understand what sene is and what kind of sene we can use. Normally, especially for middle level, sene is pressure strike. Pressure strike. Few people have connection. Pressure, so try to keep connection with my opponent and then strike. Or sene is not always pressure. And during kata we can understand this difference. There are cases where there is clear pressure, so invite Uchidachi to strike, and so I react. There are other situations when is Shitachi who keep the advantage, and I can strike in Gonosen. Also the compression of how to use Sensen no Sen, Gonosen. We know there are some kata, almost kata is Ojiwaza. But many times we think Ojiwaza is always a reaction, so maybe it's Gonosen. Is it not true? We are almost kata is Sensen no Sen, but we execute technically Gonosen, Ojiwaza. And in this way we can clarify to ourselves what sensen is, what gonosen is, what kind of sene. This point, or this kind of point, due to the rhythm of kata, is not speedy, is not how to say, powerful, and so we can have time, a chance to understand this point. That normally maybe it's more difficult during normal keiko, normal jigeiko, because the speedy, the rhythm is different. So it's a very good opportunity with kata to understand very well this kind of point that is not the physical basic for kendo, but is psychological basic for kendo practice.
Thank you so much for these very meaningful and beautiful, actually, answers. And what I really like about this panel is that you really, although you're talking about the same thing one way or the other, but your approaches are just a little kind of completely different in the sense of how to tackle the problem. I really, really enjoy it. Do we have any questions regarding kata or something? Yes, please.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. So you mentioned that, like, of course, I understand that kata is a connection to the heritage of kendo that we are using the sword, etc. But kendo is evolving, right? So, like, we can't say that like kendo 110 years ago is the kendo today. So I understand that 110 years ago, these like sons of samurai families, they got together, they wanted to collect all this wisdom, they wanted to unify, they wanted to get some kind of teaching methodology for the people. But then kendo went through a lot of problems. In the 50s, it changed completely. Even in the last few decades, if I remember when I look at in the 90s, like matches, it's not the same kendo as today, for example. So, and like the whole point is that like one of my best friends is a Japanese high school, used to do high school in kendo, or in kendo in high school and university. He hates kata. He absolutely is like, this is the most pointless, like he never like, but he has the most beautiful, most relaxed, most amazing kendo, and he taught me a lot because he was doing kendo every day for hours, every weekend, 8 hours competition, going for competition. So why cannot we learn sene, tame, all these what's through just doing more shinai kendo? Because we are not using the boko, right? We are using the shinai, and we are using boku, and we are doing jigeko. So why do we still need like kata when there are other ways to learn development, other ways to learn sene? So that's my question. Thank you very much.
I have a short answer for your long question.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you very much.
I agree that we can learn Seime and Kime and Tame with Shinai, with special exercises. I think that kata could be like a vehicle, you know. If you know the techniques, your repetition of the techniques, and it's like a vehicle that can bring something more. And you do always the same techniques, and inside it, you can put Seime, you can put Kime, Tame, you can put other things because of the vehicle. With Shinai, practice with Shinai, you should invent some special exercise in order to learn Seime, to learn Tame, and so on and so on. The way to teach kendo with Shinai in Japan is more repetition of uchikomi, kirigaishi, kikakageko, and so on and so on and so on. But the scene notion like Seime, Tame, Kime could be learned automatically by themselves because they felt this inside the way they practice kakageko, jigeko, and so on and so on. But most of them could go aside of this. Some of them could get it, but some of them will go aside. The kata with the vehicle make the possibility for me to put these very specific things inside the vehicle of the kata practice. This is my answer.
Well, actually, the reason there are so many sort of ways you could explain it, but it's precisely because why can't we just do this with the Shinai? You can, of course, but remember what we're doing is kendo. And how many people in the world has never done kendo before? If they see a Shinai, what do they think that is? Right? Does that look like a sword to you? And the reason why the kata actually developed 110 years ago was so to remind practitioners of kendo that what they are doing, even though they're doing it with the Shinai, actually came from a sword. So it's very much a reminder that when you put a bokuto or a real sword in your hand and you do this kata, it gives you a completely different mindset. And it's a reminder that what we're doing with the Shinai is we're essentially trying to apply the principles of the sword. But when you're only using a Shinai, you sort of forget that, where it came from. So it was created as precisely, and Abuse said this before, as a reminder to students that this is where it came from. So it's there to keep the cultural heritage and, as I mentioned before, the various philosophical aspects of Kendo from a traditional standpoint alive in a different form to what most people normally practice. And if you know what the official principle of Kendo is, the Kendo no Ninen. Kendo is to develop yourself through practicing